A very good morning to all the students of class 12. Today I take on the poem Keeping Quiet by Pablo Neruda from your reader Flamingo. Well, as we know that Pablo Neruda is actually the pen name used by the poet, and he was very active in politics and took a keen interest in things happening around. And he also won the Nobel Prize for Literature in the year 1971. This poem written by Pablo Neruda, it is an appeal to all the people to actually cut down on their speed or to slow down their pace in this mad world, as we can say, and to take a break from it all, from all the activities, and for once just to be silent, to introspect. So basically the theme of the poem is retrospection and introspection. Retrospection for the fact to go back to the past and see what mankind has done and how mankind has been instrumental in bringing about destruction, in destroying the environment, and in spoiling the environment, and as a result is facing so many consequences himself. You know, it's today we can say that the way the world is moving, and man is, in the name of progress, in the name of advancement, in the name of, becoming superpowers and things like that, they are not realizing the harm that they have done to the environment, to the people, and to themselves. That is why it is an appeal to the people to be in silence for some time, to take a break, and to actually introspect and gauge their activities and to see what have they achieved and what have they lost. So I will read the poem and explain it side by side. Now we will count to 12 and we will all keep still. Now we will count to 12. That's counting 1, 2, 3, 4 till 12. It's a very short span of time. And why the poet has just taken up 12? Maybe because we have 12 signs on the clock, since we are timing ourselves. I mean, it's for a short while, just counting 12. So maybe because the clock has 12 signs on it and 12 marks on it, so maybe that is why he has taken 12 into consideration. And we will all keep still. Now, he wants us to get into a mood of meditation. And when there's silence around, we can meditate, and only then can we introspect. Now, to get into that mode of meditation, you need some time to break away from worldly affairs and to bring your mind to that level of meditation, of introspection. So that is why the count is very, very important, because you can't switch over immediately from one aspect to the other aspect. You need some time, to settle down, to bring your mind to that level. So counting is important. We will all keep still. Here you notice the figure of speech is alliteration. We will, W and W. For once, on the face of the earth, let's not speak in any language. Let's stop for 1 second and not move our arms so much. For once, let's take a break. We've not done it for maybe years together, or we've not done it at all. So for once, let us try it out, So for once, on the face of the earth, on the surface of the earth, let's not speak in any language. Let's just be silent, completely silent. They say that if speech is silver, silence can be gold. So what he's trying to tell us is that language, divides us. There's a lot of discrimination on the basis of language. So it divides us, it separates us. So he does not want that kind of a separation or discrimination. So he wants everybody to indulge in just one language, and that is the language of silence. And you must have heard of the term linguistic chauvinism, when one nation or one area considers their language to be superior than the other. So that causes linguistic chauvinism. This word you must have heard it linked with male chauvinism, domination, So linguistic chauvinism can also sometimes hamper the, people from uniting, because that causes, linguistic domination. So he wants no language at all, because all over the world, so many languages are spoken, so many languages. So he does not want anybody to speak or say anything, so that there is no division, there is no discrimination among the people, and they all indulge only in the language of silence, because then they will be considered as one and not be separated. And not move our arms so much. Now, moving of the arms symbolizes activity. And activity, because all the time we are doing something or the other, and mostly what we are doing is destruction. So not to move the arms, to just be in a state of peace and tranquility. No movement, no language, just to be there and just to be aware of your being, of yourself, and not moving the arms. It would be an exotic moment. Exotic, rare, unusual, extraordinary moment. Without rush, without engines. Now, today you all are familiar about the rush that is there in our lives. Everybody is rushing. It's like a mad race. The world of competition is there. And everybody is running this race and not even looking back or looking forward to what's happening, what's not happening. Are we harming ourselves or are we benefiting ourselves? We are just rushing without engines. Engines pertains to the mechanical life engines are actually the machines, the world of machines that we indulge in. And also how our lives have become so mechanical in this world. Getting up, moving about, going out, working, coming back. There is no time for ourselves. There is no time to think. There is no time to ponder whether we are moving in the right direction or not. So the fast pace of modern life that we are leading is actually taking its toll on the people. And life can only be peaceful when we do things after proper contemplation, after thinking about it, weighing the pros and cons. But here we see that it is thoughtless advancement. So thoughtless advancement has to be stopped. Otherwise, we are all indulging in self-destruction. Thoughtless advancement, okay? We are not thinking, like we only think about the rosy picture that yes, everything is for our comfort, for our luxury and industrialization, but we never thought about the environment, how we are harming it. It was only at a very later stage that we realized that the ozone layer is getting depleted and there's a hole in it, and how the environment has really been ruined, the pollution level. And as a result, we ourselves are facing that problem, because we've heard of that in future years, if things are not rectified, people may have to move around with masks and with cylinders on their back, because there would be no air to breathe, proper fresh air to breathe. So these are the destructive ways in which we are moving at a fast rate. So in order to stop this, the poet is making an appeal that we should all stop and experience this exotic moment. He doesn't want this kind of exotic moment only for a particular area. It's a universal appeal. He wants the people all over the world to actually unite and be a part of this exotic moment. We would all be together in a sudden strangeness. Now here again, the consonant S and S repeated twice, so it's an alliteration. A sudden strangeness. And what is this strangeness? The sudden strangeness is of universal brotherhood. I mean, which we can say, we can talk about it only, in a way of making a reference, but otherwise, when we come to see in all the parts of the world, there is violence, there is strife, and nobody is united. So, if that situation comes where everybody is united in brotherhood, it would be an exotic moment, a rare moment. And this rare moment can only come if we take a break, we stop, we pause, and then we create this exotic moment of silence and introspection. Fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales, and the man gathering salt would look at his hurt hands. Now, over here, fishermen, the poet has used the word fisherman and the whales, and we all very well know that whales are almost on the verge of extinction. But here, in the larger sense, fisherman pertains to man who is indulging in destructive activities against nature, and he is ruining nature. So he's destroying nature. So fisherman symbolizes for man's activities against nature. Would not harm whales, because we know whales are near extinction. And the man gathering salt would look at his hurt hands. Now, man gathering salt. Now, this talks about, it's not literally gathering salt, but it means the activities that man is indulging in. So, if he stops for a moment, he will have a look at his hurt hands. Hurt hand symbolizes the harm that he is doing to himself. And he will become conscious of the fact, because if he doesn't take a break, if he continues doing the same activity, he will never realize the harm or the self-destruction that he's indulging in. So a man needs to take a break and to look at his activities and to see what he is doing and what he is up to, and he should become conscious and see and introspect that the harm that he is causing not only to himself but to nature and to the others as well. And this fisherman that we're talking about is, as I told you, it's not only particularly for a fisherman, but it means man's indiscriminate exploitation of nature. So fisherman symbolizes man in general for his indiscriminate exploitation of nature. And for what reason? For his selfish or vested gains. Figure of speech again used here. Hurt hands, the use of the consonant H. Hurt hands, alliteration. Those who prepare green wars with gas, wars with fire, victory with no survivors, would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade doing nothing. Now, this is an advice to the warmongers, okay, the people who indulge in war. So it is an advice by the poet to them that those who prepare green wars. Now, those stands for the people who indulge in all these kind of activities, like, for example, the politician, the statesmen, and the scientists who are creating these weapons and these warfare, artillery and things like that. So those who prepare green wars, number one, green wars, war against nature, war against environment, where all vegetation, all nature, environment, that is green wars. Wars with gas, these are all your nuclear weapons, your chemicals that are used with chemical gases. And wars with fire. With fire means the firearms that they are producing. Here again we have a figure of speech, children. WW, wars with, alliteration. Victory with no survivors. So it's a message to them that what are you indulging in? Why are you creating these wars? Why are you indulging in these kind of wars? Because ultimately, what's the point? Because there will be no survivors left. So whom are you going to celebrate this victory with? You know, so there is an advice to them to change their ways. So the poet asked the warmongers, Warmongers, the warmongers would put on clean clothes. Here we again have a figure of speech, which is an alliteration, see, clean, clothes, see. And it is also another figure of speech that is a metaphor. Metaphor. Clean clothes does not mean clothes that are washed and ironed. Clean clothes over here means metaphorically to bring about a change in their outlook, in their ways, in their thought process, and not to indulge in wars, instead to walk about with their brothers. To walk about with their brothers, consider everybody as their brothers and not enemies, and walk about with them as their brothers in the shade doing nothing. In the shade means peaceful background, peacefully, happily, harmoniously, to actually shun all wars and to see each other as brothers and to practice brotherhood, fraternity. In the shade doing nothing. In the shade doing nothing means just to not indulge in any kind of destruction, but to be together, to be happy, to be peaceful, and it would be a blissful moment. So it is an appeal to the warmongers to leave all their destructive activities and against others, and to reflect on their activities and change their ways. Clean clothes metaphorically means they're changing their ways, and instead of indulging in warfare, to become peaceful. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. What I want, the poet says that to shun all activities and not to indulge in any activity should not be confused, should not be misunderstood, should not be mistaken for total inactivity. Total inactivity means to just sit idle, not to do anything, with no action. So he says that we should not consider the poet's appeal to become inactive, to just sit there idle doing nothing. So he's saying, don't misunderstand me for that. Life is what it is about. As we always say, life is not contemplation. Life is action. We have to keep working. We have to keep acting. I want no truck with death. I want to deal, I'm not talking about death. I'm not dealing with the idea of death. So inactivity is, in a way, when we can say that when one dies, he's totally inactive, so that is death. But the poet says, don't misunderstand me and don't mistake me for this kind of inactivity in that way, which is linked with death. But what I want to say is that we must carry on activities that are only beneficial for this world, for the environment, for nature, and for the people, and for ourselves. To think about the consequences first. If we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving, so single-minded, here the poet says that everybody is single-minded, means everybody is going on the same track with the same thought process. Everybody is moving about, keeping our lives moving, and for once could do nothing. And perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. So what the poet is trying to say, that if we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving, that we have to carry on with the same process, whatever we have begun, we should carry on with that. No. If we take a break, if we introspect, if we retrospect and make changes, then definitely we can bring about a change, and we can save ourselves, we can save the world, we can save the environment. And what is required? A huge silence is required for that, so that we can look into ourselves. We can actually brood over it, think over it, contemplate and introspect that, whether the path that we have chosen and we are walking on, is it safe? what we are doing. Is it right? Is it correct? Perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness. Interrupt means break. This sadness of never understanding ourselves. It's a big pity that, in this mad race that we are running, actually, we have no time for ourselves. It's so true. I mean, you ask anybody, oh, I'm so busy these days and there's so much work. I don't have time for myself. There's no time at all. There's no time at all. Everybody keeps harping about the same thing. And we are not even giving time to ourselves. So, there is a question to ask. I mean, why have we come into this world? There must be a purpose. Are we fulfilling that purpose, or are we just carrying on with that herd mentality? Herd mentality is following the others just as they are following and not analyzing what is my potential. So why should I be copying what the others are doing? Maybe that's not my potential, but that is the way the world is going today. We are running, racing, and trying to compete with everybody. And we want to reach the top, irrespective of the fact that how we gain that or attain that position, maybe by unfair means or whatever it is, trampling over the others, but we have to run the race. So that is why we are all single-minded. We are all working with the same thought process. And it's really, heartbreaking to see that the sad plight of humans today, that we don't even understand ourselves. We don't know ourselves. That is a big, sad aspect of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. Because we are not analyzing, we are not introspecting, we are moving on, we are running and running. And we don't get time to introspect. And as a result, what is happening? We are endangering ourselves with death. We are threatening ourselves with death. It's like the man is sitting on the branch and cutting that same branch. So that is what is happening today. That we people do not understand ourselves. We are threatening ourselves with destruction, and our thoughtless activities that we are indulging in are gradually leading us towards death. In this, we notice that the poet is trying to be positive because he's not talking about death. He's not talking about being idle. What he's talking about is constructive activities. The last stanza we come to. Perhaps the earth can teach us is when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. The earth has a lot to teach us, and this we can take from the fact that, if we pause and we think and we give ourselves time, we can realize in winters, we can see that, the earth almost becomes barren. In autumn, all the trees shed their leaves. There's hardly any vegetation around and everything seems very lifeless and barren. But that doesn't mean that the earth has come to an end. What happens? Immediately when spring announces its arrival, everything actually springs back to life and there's beauty all around. The fresh petals and the blossoms and everything looks so beautiful and energized and rejuvenated and everything. And it's heartening to watch and enjoy nature at that time. So just as we can say that the phoenix rises from the ashes, so the earth also springs back to life like that. And we have a great lesson to learn from the earth, that it appears to be barren or dead, but don't be negative about it. You can always start anew. You can always start afresh. But that can only be possible if we believe in taking out time to introspect, to pause, to introspect and see that what we are doing, is that right or not? And if it's not right, then we should change our ways. We should mend our ways. We should put on clean clothes. We should change our ways and our thought process and believe in the right way of living. So silence, keeping quiet, as the title suggests, it is beautiful because silence can do a lot of good. All these ascetics and all these hermits, they go into the lap of nature on high mountains or deep forests where there's absolute silence, where they can meditate. So silence has a great healing Also, so many times that when we are worried about something, or we are angry about something, or we are upset about something, or you've had a fight with somebody or something like that, the only single line that comes out is, leave me alone, I want to be alone. So that is the time when you want to be with yourself, and you analyze things, you introspect, and then sometimes there's a great healing effect, and when you calm down, you realize that maybe the mistake was on your part only, and then things begin to ease out. So too much of noise, too much of hustle bustle, too much of chaos actually takes its toll, and this is what is happening in the world today. Now, I'm doing this poem with you today. So in the contemporary scenario that we are witnessing these days because of the COVID-19 and the lockdown, we've got so many videos coming from all over where we can see that when there is no traffic on the roads, and there is no movement of people on the road, the animals from the adjoining forests and areas have actually come into human land. Now, the rivers that were so dirty, within this lockdown period, they have cleared out, and the water is really crystal clear. So you can see, this is actually happening, and you are a part of this change that you've just noticed within these few days. So actually, silence is really required because it soothes your nerves. Because all the time when you are on the run, it's nerve-wracking actually, and human beings are actually becoming nervous wrecks. So it is time to take a break, to stop, to introspect. So it is very, very important. So the theme of the poem is retrospection and introspection. That in silence we must actually take a break, we must take a pause, we must visualize or analyze and see what we are doing. Is it right or is it wrong? And this is a universal appeal for everybody all over the world to be in that exotic moment, This reminds me of the exotic moment is during the lockdown period when the Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced the beating of the thalis and ringing of bells. Now, everybody was in their homes, but at that particular time, all over India, everybody came out onto the terrace or into the balconies. So that was, you can imagine, that was one exotic moment at that time, which we all experienced, because everybody had come together and everybody was doing what they had been told to do. So there was unity at that time, when we all were together. So these are small examples, that we can relate. And to keep quiet, like in school, in all these convents, that we have these sisters and nuns, from time to time they keep going into retreat. So first we used to ask, what is this retreat? So this is the time when they go and they're all by themselves, and there's no interaction with the others around, and that is the time when they introspect and they visualize, analyze, and see what is right, and where things could be better, or how they can move on, or what have they acquired or accomplished, and what is left to be accomplished. So all these is very, very important. Meditation is very, very important, and meditation not only for your body but also for your mind and your thought process and everything, to have the right frame of mind, to keep analyzing from time to time, to keep making a report card of your actions, whether your actions are right, fruitful, constructive or not. I would like to continue with a few questions with you. What does count to 12 imply? Now, this expression begins or talks about the session of introspection and meditation. When you're stressed out, you're in some conflict, you're in some dilemma. So the best exercise is to keep quiet. And in that quiet state, your mind is also at peace, your mind is calm, and that is how you can weigh the pros and cons of what is the action that you're indulging in. And 12, I said, because maybe the signs on the clock, we have 12 numbers, so maybe it is 12, to switch over from one medium to the other medium. Next question please. What advantage does the poet see in keeping quiet? When one keeps quiet, it gives one an opportunity to introspect about our mistakes or also about our achievements. And these moments are exotic because when everybody is united, we will forget all these petty man-made differences that we indulge in, and we will be one as a whole, and there will be a world of peace. Language, I've told you, I gave it to you that linguistic chauvinism, it just breeds domination, and language leads to discrimination. Okay. Next question. What would be an exotic moment for the poet? For the poet, the exotic moment would be when there is peace all over the world, when there is universal brotherhood and everybody is together in love and harmony through introspection and silence. Okay. Next question. What are fishermen symbolic of? Fishermen symbolize man's indiscriminate exploitation of nature for his own vested interests. Okay, next question. What would happen when men put on clean clothes? When men put on clean clothes for some time, they will not indulge in or repeat those same activities, but they would reflect inwardly, and they, instead of thinking about war and destruction, they would actually believe in peace and harmony and brotherhood. Okay. And what lesson will man learn when he just walks about with his brothers doing nothing? Like walking in the shade, that line is there. So what do you think? What lesson will man learn? In walking with his brothers in the shade, he would learn the strength of humanity. The strength of humanity, and he would become conscious of this peaceful universal brotherhood, and as a result his activities would come to an end. Who doesn't want peace? Who doesn't want harmony? Everybody wants that, but it's only that we have to take a break and sever ties from that side and from the negative aspects and come on to the positive side, because all this will provide a healing touch. When we are living together in peace, harmony, goodwill, love, then everything will be healed. Next question. I want no truck with death. Here the poet means that I don't want anything to deal with death. Inactivity does not mean death here, because life is an ongoing process. It is action. Man always has to keep acting. But what he's associating this action or activity with is all constructive activities. Next question, please. What is man single-minded about? Today, men are single-minded. What are they single-minded about? Now, today, the way man is targeting himself single-mindedly is about the scientific progress or advancement that we so call. And he has focused himself so much on these activities without thinking about or without weighing the pros and cons of that activity and not reflecting on the consequences. So that is what he's single-minded about. Next question. What is the sadness of never understanding ourselves? So this is, in this race of materialism is emotionally becoming very, very low. Actually the emotional quotient is almost dying out, because we are so busy in this mad race that we forget that we have certain emotions, and whether we are taking care of them, are we happy, or is it making us happy, or is it bringing happiness around? No. Or is it bringing us some relief, or is it just making us more and more mad? So this is the fact, the sadness of never understanding our emotional needs. And that is why sometimes, despite having all the riches, despite having all the comforts and luxuries, man still feels very sad and very lonely. That is why, because we are only one track about the advancement, about materialistic pursuits, but we are not taking into account whether we are actually happy with all that or not. How has man, next question please, how has man threatened himself with death? The rapid, advancement towards progress at the cost of nature, at the cost of environment, at the cost of people, all that is taking its toll, and that is why man is threatening himself with death. What can the earth teach us? The earth can teach us resurrection. You must have come across this word, in the Bible also it's used, the great resurrection of Jesus Christ, when he rose from the dead and he was among his disciples. To resurrect is to rise once again, and from nothing and to rise once again. So there is resurrection in life. We can always make amends. If we've made a mistake, we should stop there and we should make amends and go on to the right path. And how life can emerge from the ashes of the dead remains. Why does the speaker count up to 12? Because that's an exercise in meditation. I told you, from one medium you have to go to the next medium. So you need some time for the brain to settle down, to calm down, and to go into the mode of meditation. And to reach that point of ecstasy or bliss, as we call. So it takes time. So that is why he wants us to count up to 12. The last question, please. Explain, you keep quiet and I will go. Now the poet has put onto track the people by asking them to be quiet, or, and to introspect, and to come out of it rejuvenated, rejuvenated with a renewed energy, with a positive attitude. And the silence will have a healing effect on all of them, and they will come out of this happily. So this transition of mindset, the change in the mindset that will come, and he leads the people to that process of meditation and to come out rejuvenated, and he has done his job. He has put the people on the track, and then after leaving them on track, then he moves on, and he goes from there maybe to put another lot into the same process of introspection. I hope the text was clear, and the question answers would be able to help you out. So thank you very much for watching.